Hello, everyone. We're back again with another podcast, and this week, not all those who wander are lost. But I am, because I can't find the intro. Hello, good evening, good afternoon, good morning. I hope you're all doing well, and I'm delighted to say that today we've got a really special, high-quality guest on. So, Marcos, no pressure. Would you just like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi guys. My name's Marcos Batherlor. I'm a friend of Omondi Juma. We sort of have a family tie. Our parents are friends, so I come from the same part of West London as him. I'm now based in Peterborough. Via USA, and I'm sure we're going to talk a lot about my experiences where football's taken me in the world. But yeah, I'm now local football coach and scout for a professional football club, Cambridge United. So yeah, thanks for having me.
And speaking of Cambridge, one of our lads here is from Cambridge. Rich, how are you?
I'm very good, thanks.
Sorry for doxing you. Omondi, how's it going?
Yeah, great. I'm really excited to see Marcos. I'll just take you back to what I remember from Marcos. Marcos was a young boy. I always remember Marcos was one of the cutest kids I've ever seen. Really lovely young man. I knew you when you were about 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, and just cute as can be. And I always thought, oh, little Marcos. And then years later, because obviously he drifted apart, he moved away. And thing, but I did keep tabs on him and everything. I know his mum, and he's got a lovely sister as well. And then Facebook, social media, we kind of linked up again and started talking and thing. And and sometimes it confuses me seeing the man he's grown into, and it makes me feel old for one. But then I'm so proud of him, as I said recently, when I found out about his achievements and all, because he's always posting wonderful stuff about football. And word around here, I even sort of put my ear to the ground and asked a few people in West London, Marcos, recently. I said, what's Marcos saying? What is a baller? And the word that comes back is this. People said, you developed late. That's what they said. You developed like late. So from 15, 16, 17, 18, that's when you really started to come into your own because you worked hard at your game and you were just an animal with training and physicality and just a great athlete as well. And people rate you highly. People that I look up to, like your generation, they say Marcos is a baller. When someone says they're a baller, it's easy, yeah, whatever. But they say no, Marcos is a proper baller. And this is back then. And obviously, you've done so much more. We're going to find out during the show. But it's an absolute pleasure. And it gives me my chest is swelling up right now to know, because obviously we go way back, bro. We're like family. And it swelled up big time, as I said to you on the voice note and everything, just to know what you've been doing and what a fine young man you've become. So credit to your parents, obviously. Just want to give a shout out. I love music and I respect your dad. He's in music. Maybe you want to talk about that as well. I'm into the music as well. So we have so much in common. And this is going to be a wonderful podcast, guys. Marcus is a top bloke and let's go. And just to say as well, look at this. I know Bathtime, you lived in Peterborough or around the area. You're from Cambridge, Rich. And now you're in Peterborough as well. So I feel like the odd man out here. So you're doing your Peterborough jokes, like you said, backstage. I'm getting lost here. I don't know what you're talking about.
Thank you very much, Zach.
Okay, so Marcos, first of all, what position are you? We've heard you're a great player, but let's hear a bit about the youth career.
So do you know what? It depends how good the team that I'm playing is. When the highest level I played sort of wing back, but I've played attacking midfield and right back and centre back as well. So I'll call myself probably a defensive midfielder.
No, excellent. This is all music to my ears. For anyone who's sort of listening and wondering why the quality of the opposition means where you play, it's because we all want to be up front, and the better the standard is, the further back we go. Or certainly it was in my case. All right, so let's get in it. And I think the first thing that I want to talk about is to bring in your sort of like your time in America. So if you'd like to sort of just give us a bit of background around that.
Yeah. So at the time, I was playing for a team called Yedding, which is a semi-pro team. They were doing quite well, and we had a couple of players who were pretty well known in the area as well. So it was a privilege to play for them. But at the time, a few of my friends were sort of looking into going to America. It just seemed to be the thing, you know. To make it where we came from, you had to be a professional player. You know, people didn't want to go and play semi-pro and have to go all the way up through the ranks. So going to America seemed like a really good option at the time. And also you could continue your education, which appealed to me because I did quite well in school and was always encouraged to by my family. So it actually turned out to be a really, really good option for me, really. So I started looking at it seriously and figured actually it wouldn't take too much to make it happen. But simultaneously, my dad kind of was looking at stuff online, and he found this company called First Point USA. And they were organising football trials in the UK at sort of different events at different dates. So yeah, we got in touch with them, and I went down to one of their events. Now, some of these kids, and I sussed out pretty early on that you know, this company was set up. They were making some serious money, and I was very curious, like what the level of players were that were turning up. So I was, you know, I never went in sort of like with a big I am sort of thing, but I already knew I was playing at Yedding from the age of about 16, you know, through the reserves and a couple of appearances for the first team and stuff. So I knew I was a decent level and went down, and my uncle came down with a camera and recorded it as well. So basically that's what got me a scholarship. That went off, that video recording went off to various colleges, and they offer you an amount of money. It could be like a full scholarship, it could be half, it could be 70%. So you get various offers back, and then you've got to look at the list and take your pick. I was lucky enough that I got a scholarship offer from a college which was rated top 10 for education in the country. But also what I didn't know when I eventually got there was they had the top cross-country side in the country, and also right next to their campus was the Hall of Fame for the NFL. So we had like sport oozing through it, and like, you know what I mean? Could you imagine going and playing your games in a stadium like that? So yeah, it was an amazing experience, and I picked really, really well. It was also a Christian university, so it attracted a lot of wealthy families, kids and stuff. So a great place to network as well, and great education. Yeah, it was just an amazing experience overall. But yeah, I'll tell you very quickly, like my first ever day when I arrived there, because I met one who went on to be one of my best friends in the world, and he's a Scottish lad called Jason Hendry, and probably one of the best football players I've ever played with. Absolute lunatic on the football pitch and off it, but an absolute gentleman at the same time, and amazing. Like he was actually waiting for me in the arrival lounge when I got there. And so I'm looking out for, I'm looking for somebody that's in a tracksuit, but he was from Scotland. So he just had this, he didn't have any team kit on or anything, but he looked pretty chavvy. So that was how I, and anyway, but he was like just the nicest dude in the world and wanted to make me feel really comfortable. And so he took me back to the car where our coach was waiting, and we went off and got a burrito, and he basically showed me around campus and introduced me to everybody who was there, and organised for us to go to a party on my first night.
Oh wow!
So yeah, it was like a perfect sort of introduction to American culture and life, and JJ was there to sort of walk my hand through it as well. What he didn't know about me at the time was that I could MC as well. So we've gone to this house party, and they had like the system going, all these dudes on the mic, and then I didn't know anybody, but I've gone up and took the mic and had a little MC battle, and I'll tell you what, after that, everybody knew who I was, like on
Even the ladies.
So yeah, no, and it was just an amazing experience overall. But yeah, you probably want to know a little bit about what the football was like and the schedule and stuff like that.
What I want to know about is the training. I am a huge
the
fan of
training,
training.
yeah.
I'm one of the only players that likes training as much as playing, and I think that the opportunities to go as a sort of like as a paid student and train every day is the thing that excited me the most when I failed to do what you did.
Well, so how it works is you've got it's called a varsity team. So your team is made up of people who are in the varsity team who could have various levels of different scholarship, but then also you've got junior varsity, and some colleges have other teams. So you can have like 4 teams, and they all do it. It's pretty similar to over here. They could split it or they could blend it in, and players moving between the groups and stuff like that. But if you've got a scholarship, you're not moving between the the teams and stuff like that generally. But yeah, you're training generally about 3-4 times a week if you haven't got a game. But you're having sessions. If you've got, say, 2 games a week, you'll have sessions in between. And in the off season, it used to be, so when I first arrived, they had 3 sessions a day. And the thing you've got to understand about university in America is you've got everything there. So if you're on campus, your room and board is paid for, you've got a scholarship paying for your education. All you literally have got to do is wake up in your bedroom, tag along with everybody else, like go to your classes, do what you need to do, and go to training. And if you come out of that process and you've not sacked it off, you're going to be a better person. You're going to be a better football player. And the levels in between, it all is up to you, like how dedicated you are. So as with all places, the coaching can vary. When I arrived there, I think they were sort of behind in sort of the tactical side of the game, but the physical side, they were quite advanced, because you've got to remember they've got like American football and basketball, and all their players are always in the gym. So we had a really, really good off-season program, and everything's looked after. You've got physios, so you can get massages. It's up to you whether you want to go and take that sort of stuff, but all the facilities are there. But yeah, we'd have when pre-season, for example, you'd have 3 sessions a day. You'd have probably 2 fitness sessions, and then followed by a warm down or something like that. And then week 2, the football start coming in. But yeah, it was really, really heavy on the fitness, which was really, really good, but always it kicked your ass, so.
Sounds like an absolute dream, to be honest.
It
Richard,
is,
do you have any particular
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions actually, because when you're describing the education system in the US, we know how the facilities are amazing in terms of college basketball, college football. You're looking at stadiums that you get in the Premier League for college. Is crazy, the resources they've got. And the question I've asked people I know in the US in the past is, given the resources, given the population, surely it seems like a matter of time before USA start producing fantastic footballers and a fantastic team. We haven't seen that so far, despite I know there's like efforts in the 70s with Pelé and Best. There's efforts in the 90s after the World Cup to try and promote the game, and I think now it does seem to actually be sort of taking hold. The team is qualified for World Cup. It's some of the players now are making it in the Premier League, the Bundesliga. Do you think it's a matter of time? Like we've seen with rugby, that it takes sort of a generation to kind of accept that it's a viable option for people to go into, but also that you then get the coaches and you get I think we've seen with rugby, different head coaches go from more established teams like England, Wales to go to other countries to kind of bring the level up. So do you think there's a matter of time before the USA are at the level of sort of European teams, given the resources they've got, should really exceed a lot of our countries?
I mean, to be fair to them, I think they've done really well in recent years, and I think they've really invested in their youth and the core players they've got now. And I think that the issue always was the system that they have in place and how they're nurturing their talent. So at the time when I was in America, you had, there was a lot of talent in America. You know, just like you're saying, you know, a country that big with a population that large, you know, you have to really understand that a lot of their talented individuals, people who have got good motor skills, are playing other sports. So they either have to be supernaturally talented or just have a love for the sport to get to a decent level. But the problem is when they're playing in teams locally where they live, they'll be the only player who is like that. So they're carrying the whole rest of their team on their back. So they'll come out of an environment like that and then have to go into an environment where they now have to start playing as a team. So there's that transition. I think that they needed to suss out that transition, getting a player like that who's got ability. Because America's so big, how do you move him physically? You know, what is viable for him to be getting regular training at a high level with other high level players? How do you provide that? So that was the gap. But in terms of individual talent, obviously a country that big's got it. I think that it's just a sad case that in America they're just gonna lag behind in certain areas because of the culture of the country and the fact that they've got established sports that sit in front of soccer. Women's soccer,
There's a financial
maybe not.
barrier to access, because somebody told me that to play football you have to pay quite a lot of money in terms of like joining a club.
Well, okay, so it's become a bit of a middle class sport because you've got, like I said, you know, the problem with the system is where there was a void, a lot of businessmen have come in to replace that void. Whereas, you know, in our country, we've got an infrastructure which is provided to keep the costs down for the regular person, where over there it's, you know, it's business people who are filling that void. And that's it. So yeah, they've got talent centers, they've got clubs, they've got academies, all that sort of stuff, but you have to have money to pay for it. And a lot of the people are coming from around the world, like our country as well, America, the South Americas as well. People with football knowledge are going there, but they've got to live and they've got to eat as well.
And Omondi, is there anything that you're curious
Yeah,
about?
just while we're on that, so Marcus, do you reckon there's an identity? You know, like you're talking about, you must have met Mexican players and South American players in the US. There's a lot of them out there, and obviously they've got an identity of the way they play their football. But going forward with the USA, what? Because you're an Englishman, you've come over, and you probably had that advantage of being a bit rough and knowing the dark arts, what they might not know.
Yeah, definitely. So
what identity do you think USA will have as a nation, or the way they play their football with their MLS that they have now? What, is it going to be a fusion of like Mexican and South American mixed with European? How do they have their own identity? How they play?
I think they do. Yeah, I think they do actually.
And things like that. It's very tactical.
So yeah, so I would say that they're very physically fit. They're very they've got massive engines. I would say they've got a natural team ethic and teamwork because you know, a lot of, you know, have you ever met someone from USA who's not patriotic? You know, they all love their country, and that's just, you know, so they work really well as a team. I've got to say that. So I think they're you know, as a national team, yeah, I think they'll do well because of those factors. You got teams like Japan, for example. They work so well as a team. They're really, really technical, and they play. That's how they play. They got their identity, and I think that teamwork aspect is something that America can be also painted with. I know that it sounds probably odd because of all the fallouts that have happened recently, but I'm talking about the players.
Sorry, what fallouts are you talking about?
With their national team, you know, arguing over team selections at the recent World Cup.
A coach or something,
like
not picking certain
He had
people.
an affair.
Oh, right, I didn't know this.
Yeah, because
There's some good gossip there.
Yeah, I don't get too involved with it, but I just, you know.
Marcus, can I just pick you up on something there, which is that, like, you've talked about how, like, the American culture leads to great teamwork and things, but you previously mentioned that the players that come through the system, like, play as the stars in sort of like poorly funded teams, or well, not funded teams, but you know what I mean. So how do those two things kind of like equate with each other?
Yeah, so I don't think anybody has a particular problem with teamwork and stuff like that. It's just when you've got a really talented kid in a talented team, he's always been the figurehead of that team. Then you've got to take him out of that environment and put him in an environment with other talented kids. I think it can go both ways. But if you keep it within, so not too extreme, so that they get more of those experiences, you'll get better results with the players. Because, I mean, for example, we had one lad, one of the most talented players I've ever played with is an American lad called James. What's his last name? I can't remember his name, but he quit football, and I was heartbroken. I graduated before him, and he just decided to quit football, and I was heartbroken for him, for his family. Like, he was an amazing, talented kid, but he just didn't have the fight in him. He was so used to being the best player from he thought he could just turn up, and he could. He was fit, he was faster, he was better. Like, his touch was amazing. One of the most talented kids I've ever seen in my life, but he had nothing about his personality. Literally, you try to have a joke with him, and he'd stand there and laugh at you, and you'd think, what's going on in your head? He just didn't have what it took to be a football player, and he would say it. He didn't feel like upset or anything. He just knew he didn't want to be a football player. He just so happened to be really talented. So that, for example. Or we had another lad called Sam Urchik. I remember him because I was the guy who took him out on his first night out when he turned 21. He was a right winger, very, very talented player, but he just couldn't find a place for himself when he came into the team, because I think he's a pretty boy. He looked like what was that guy from what's his name again? The singer with the curly blonde hair, R&B singer.
Justin Timberlake?
Justin Timberlake, yeah, he looked like Justin Timberlake. But
nice.
Really, really good player. Obviously popular with the girls, but he was a really lovely lad. He wasn't, there was not a bad bone in him. But he just found it really hard to compete with other alpha males. He was used to being the pretty boy who was really good and talented at football, but you didn't see it on a stat sheet, because he just, when it came to the fight for his place, to fight for the team, he just didn't have it.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. This is the next thing that I want to sort of get into, because there's so much that we'd like to talk about. But all three of us have sort of had to leave these shores in order to sort of go and play football. Like, I played in Latin America. Omondi, you were in the Southern Hemisphere as well, at New Zealand.
Yeah.
And I think that it's really important. I think travel is really important to develop yourself as a person, see how other people live, and sort of connect more with your fellow man. I mean, Rich has gone as far as from Wales to Cambridge, which was a huge culture shock for him. So you know what I'm talking about, Rich. But because you briefly mentioned there a stats sheet, and in terms of sort of different football cultures, I always associate statistics with Americans. Where so I'm quite interested in all our experiences of what we found different playing in different continents, different countries. So maybe on Monday you can start us off with your adventures in New Zealand.
Yeah, I think I went in. This was 2003. I was in New Zealand. I was sort of 27, I think 27, 28 at the time, and it was like a chance for me. I never really played proper semi-pro over here because of work and commitments. Tuesday, Saturday, you can't do that. So I had to wing it to play out there, and I felt that going to a different country, you can reinvent yourself. I felt that you could, because I'm English, I felt I could bully these guys. I had that different mentality once I saw them play. Yeah, I agree. Technically great, stats and all that data. Yeah, they tick boxes, give them instructions, they know what to do. But there's, like I've said, there's a dark art to playing football. There's things they don't know about, and I think I use that to my advantage out there. I think New Zealand is well dated. It's like 40 years ago. It's like 1960s England, even to this day. So I think even though it's a lovely country and they're trying to promote football, I don't think they're at the level of the USA, where I think they're well advanced, as you know, with sports psychology, sports technical stuff to do with sports, that kind of thing. So I was able to get away with murder there. Yeah. Because they just weren't advanced enough, in my opinion, and we just really took the P out there in that respect, which wasn't good for me. I would have liked to be somewhere more disciplined and understanding. But then you'd find a lot of the coaches, New Zealand coaches, or the New Zealand guys around football. Like we had people from the Solomon Islands, Papua New Guinea, Fiji, and I would undermine them. As good as they were, talented as they were, they just didn't have because they don't have the leagues, they don't have the grassroots, the competitiveness, that kind of thing. It's a different ball game over there. They do with rugby and other sports like that, but when it came to soccer, it's like certain nations, FIFA sort of spreading money around the world, and it's getting corrupted. They're not seeing half of it, and it shows. It shows half the time. So, but I think USA definitely they've got the money, they've got the finances, and I think it's a completely different ball game. It's like the dark ages, New Zealand, compared to what Marcus was experiencing with the data. And I just wanted to say, not to go off track, but I was going to ask about, because I know how competitive it is. I've got a few friends who went to America as well and played ball out there and played in big stadiums, unbelievable, that sort of age, you know. But they were saying about what I've seen with performance enhancing drugs at that age for American football and athletics and all that kind of thing. The coaches are so competitive. They get paid, all these coaches, and they really push you so hard. So it's a bit of that's can be a bit of a culture shock, I think. But it seems like Marcus took it on his stride. So yeah, New Zealand dark ages compared to what Marcus was experiencing, no doubt.
And Marcus, what did you find? Like, and we'll get on to the football pyramid and how important it is for British football a bit later. But what, like, sort of like in terms of like the sort of the culture of both the match and how you were living like off the pitch, it sounds to me that like you've got the fire and determination that we all like to see from our players, and that maybe people around you didn't quite have that. Is that fair, or?
Yeah, at the time, I don't think I was aware of it, to be honest. It was just something that was in me. I don't know. I think partly that was attributed to the culture inside London and where we come from. It is, you know, I'm not saying it's not the most horrible place in the world at all by any means, but I just believe that just to sort of have that, you know, like the type of people that were going to be in the environment playing football where I was, you had to have that already. You're not going to see somebody who's a soft character go into a change room at a semi-pro football club where they're talking about the stuff that they're talking about, and you get the instructions from a football manager like the way we do. So I think that what Omondi's saying as well, we've got that in part of our culture. We know what it takes to be a character inside a dressing room and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that when I went to America, I did see a void there, and I think naturally I did sort of try to fill it. Initially, because I was a freshman, what I didn't realize is that I did knock a few noses out of joint when I came in.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't care. I did not care. So actually, at the time before I went to America, I was, like I said, I was playing football at Yeading. But I was also living on my own in London. I was a young man, you know, I was 18, 19 years old. And so 6-7 weeks leading up to go to America, my whole mentality completely changed. I was running every single day around the park. I was doing 300 press-ups, 300 sit-ups in the morning, every single morning. So by the time I got there, I was already ready to go. Do you know what I mean? These are the kind of little things that people don't see. And I always had that in me that I wanted to do it. So even like, you know, if I'd party, everybody knew about me. The one thing was I was going to train, and I was going to be probably at the front of the line training. If we're doing a race, I'll win it. If it's a long distance thing, I'll win it. But yeah, I'll go out in the night and I'll party as well. So I went with a different mentality than a lot of the boys at the time. And I was probably a lot more advanced, to be honest. But I think that helped me on and off the football pitch.
This is music to my ears, because I do 6 kilometers like every morning, and I love drinking and dancing. But it's like when I do, but I just dance.
So in America, I have to admit they frown on that sort of stuff, especially in the part of America that I was in. So I was in Ohio, which is like the Bible Belt. It's Canton, Ohio. So I don't know if I mentioned earlier, it's got the NFL Hall of Fame there, and we actually use that as our home stadium for sports. So that was pretty cool. Wow. But yeah, so they really frown on drinking, but we actually, all the international boys know that it's a part of the culture of football and everything from our country. So that was a difficult transition, and also swearing. So we'd get a lot of comments from, you know, people that were, you know, could be faculty members, family members that were just popping down to see our games, and they'd be like, "Oh, that soccer team, they do swear a lot and stuff like that." You know what I mean? So that was pretty funny. But
that's crazy, isn't it, to hear?
We had 5 Brazilians, 4 Mexicans. We had a South African lad, an Australian, 4 Scottish lads, and another boy from England, and a guy from Jamaica. And it was a competition between who would, drink the most. But we were probably the worst team on the campus for drinking, to be honest.
You definitely deserve to be playing at the NFL Hall of Fame with that kind of. But one thing I would like to know is that, so when I went to Latin America, the first thing that really sort of I saw as a huge change in the sort of culture was the amount of people that were at our games. I mean, in the UK, anything that's not below sort of step 7 or 8, you're not getting 100 people, unless it's a big game, or maybe it's around Easter or something. But I remember playing in front of 400 people in my first game, and I'd never. Yeah, it was pretty big for me, to be honest. I don't think I'd even seen 400 people in the same place before. So how did you deal with the sort of I assume you get big crowds of maybe 1,000 or something.
No, it can vary. Yeah, it depends. It depends on the game and the importance of it as well. But yeah, you do get a bit of a crowd and stuff like that.
Did you love it?
Obviously, the top universities, they'll have a big crowd, and finances for the tickets and stuff like that is a big aspect to it. But where I went, it wasn't particularly, because it was actually a private university. So yeah, that was a factor in the decision that I went. So we didn't get massive crowds, but I'd say probably 200, something like that. But it was about the same as what I was getting at Yedin when I was playing for them. So it wasn't.
But did you get cheerleaders?
Yes, you do. But
nice.
They don't. for soccer, they'd only come out if there was a special event. So normally, if it's the last game of the seniors going out and stuff like that, or if it was a big, particularly big game or something like that, they might be about. But they were more, we didn't know them that well, and they did. Soccer was frowned upon. Soccer is at the bottom of the of the ladder in the States. That's just how it is.
It's changing though. I know it's regarded as not seriously by a lot, but you said how people might aspire to be in the NBA or the NFL. But given the limited number of teams in both those divisions and the lack of other countries that are going to be paying people to play those sports, surely football's got to be more attractive, because if you don't make it there's so many leagues across Europe where you can make a decent living, and multiple leagues in the UK. So do you think that is attractive as well, that there is probably more opportunity to get a career? Because the NBA is so ridiculously competitive that even making it from Europe, you've got a very difficult, very slim chance.
I think, from a player's perspective, what you got to look at is if they really think they're talented, it's that they want to go into the best leagues in the world. They don't want to go somewhere and be typecast like they do in the movies. You know what I mean? And the problem with America is they don't really know where to rate it against. Is it League 2? Is it League 1 level? It's actually probably more beneficial for a player to have that on their CV, and it's clear and defined. They played in League 2, played in League 1. As soon as you start talking about the MLS and leagues like that, which haven't developed, we haven't decided the level yet. Unfortunately, there's that stigma that comes with it. So I'm not sure if it will ever become that attractive to players. I think the attractiveness to the South Americans is because their economies aren't great, and to get a normal job in real life is probably a lot bigger step from life in football as it is over here. You could become a personal trainer and have a good life. You could have your own business doing that. You get a lot of different transferable skills. So that's why you get a lot of players from South America going to United States to play football.
Just to defend the South Americans, they do have in Chile, Brazil, there are huge middle classes, and it's not it's not all banana republics.
No.
I know the point you're making, but it's,
yeah, I'm not. Yeah, no, you're right. And actually, there's lucrative business in academies for those wealthy people's kids. So there are different football pathways in those parts of the world. But one thing I just wanted to say is that's why it's more attractive to that type of player than a player from the UK. Really, you wouldn't upend your whole life to go and play in the MLS when you've got Championship, League One, League Two on your doorstep. So that was more sort of the point I was trying to make.
So where did you was the aim just to get a good education, network a bit, or were your eyes drawn to MLS?
No, I mean, to be honest, I did back myself. I always wanted to leave the door open for the opportunity to maybe be drafted. I don't think I understood the process fully when I went. It's just that's what they do in America. They draft. Have the draft. But yeah, no, I did back myself that I could go on to play professional, and so I did have that in my mind. But the thing that attracted to me to go there was I could train more frequently than I've ever been able to train before. I can train I'll be a student athlete. It's my job to train. Do you know what I mean? So whereas before I was always a part-time football player. You train, if you got one game a week, you train twice. If you've got 2 games a week, you train once. You're playing 3 days a week. Now it means and you've got the facilities and resources in front of you to do, before I'd have to get a membership at the gym, and what they're paying me at football, if I'm only just getting a few minutes, I might not even be able to pay for my gym membership. Do you know what I mean? So it's all on you, but where over there, you're in an incubation period. So yeah, that was what really attracted me, to be honest. And then also the fact that because I was quite strong academically, I could continue my academic options as well. I just didn't want to close any doors to myself, and I thought it was the best option that was on the table at the time.
Yeah, I think that's a really good message,
isn't it? Because they've given the percentage of people that are going to have to find an alternative career that try and make it in football. Because I think Man City were doing that when they're offering education, regardless of what year you leave their academy, you get fully paid up education for the rest of your academic life, which I think is a ridiculously good thing to offer.
Yeah, I like it because it's you're doing a service for the university. You're representing them, in their competitions and stuff, and in compensation, if you get a scholarship, that's what it pays for, and I really like it. I like the system.
Can I ask just a couple of questions? Marcus, do you think you've trained at Yeading? Obviously, Yeading got some good coaches. I don't know what year this was, but Yeading obviously they done pretty well under Drax.
Drax was there, yeah.
Yeah, was he training? Were you there when you were there?
Yeah, he was there. So, it was down Springfield Road.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so we used to train down there.
The guy I went to New Zealand with, when we came back, the next year they were playing against Newcastle.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I was at the club at that time. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So okay. So I know
all of them lot. Yeah.
DJ Campbell, Leo Woodruff, Davis,
Bradley Quamina. He's one of them.
Bradley. Yeah, he's a good friend. Yeah. Top guys. So with the training that they were having, obviously, because this is a great team, a great era for Yeading, and you were a part of that as well. So when you've gone over to the USA, because we're going to talk about training and tactics and that kind of thing, do you think you became a better player? Even though you were playing it with some top players in the UK. I mean, DJ Campbell went on to play for Brentford and Birmingham and play in the Premier League, and he was at that level with you at Yeading. Yeah. So what do you? I know bath time. Maybe you want to steer this question to training and tactics, but I just wanted to know whether you became a better player and whether you respected the coaches out there compared to what Drax was doing at Yeading in a way.
Okay, do you want me to answer? Yeah.
Well, yeah, maybe maybe you want to steer this.
No, just go for it, Marcus.
Yeah. I have to admit, I did initially think it was a big drop in the level in terms of the training we were receiving. But like with everything, you go along with it, don't you? At first, you try and settle and get take in your environment and what the positives were and the benefits and stuff like that. So they call a gym a wellness center. We had the wellness center. I knew I could go there, and immediately I didn't really concentrate on what the coach was saying.
Right.
And I did rub him up the wrong way. I pissed him off. On Monday, I'm not going to lie, I was the top goal scorer, top assist, my first 2 years. and I was playing up front. I was playing out of position. Like I told you, I'm a wing back, holding midfielder, that sort of area. I didn't really have respect for him, but I didn't let him know that unless there'd be like team meetings, for example. And there was a period we were getting absolutely annihilated on set pieces because we were doing zonal marking.
Yeah.
And we in the UK, most often than not, we do not like zonal marking. We don't do that. You can go for man. You size up the right players because you don't trust your teammates to do the zonal marking, basically. And we're getting killed. So I remember saying something to him early on, and he absolutely killed me, man. And that was
it. Him publicly.
Yeah, like we had so the thing is, like all of the Scottish boys, the English boys were in the back muttering, and I was the only one that stuck my neck out above the pulpit, and I was like, he said, does anybody have anything to say? And I said, yeah, I don't understand why we're doing zonal marking, but this was after the end of the presentation, like everything's been explained, but we did it reluctantly. That's a little bit hard at times because you're like, obviously it's quite a big fundamental disagreement to have, and you feel like the majority of the team thinks differently. So that's difficult actually as a team to deal with.
All right. So just before we get on to like a different subject, I have one last question, which is, were you in like Championship Manager and the database? Because that's the first place that I would like.
I think I might be somewhere. I believe so.
Oh, you must have checked it.
Is like now. Yeah, I used to have like an old version of Championship Manager. I swear I'm on it. I'm gonna have to get it.
Just make sure there's no zonal marking being used. All right, this is good stuff. But I think unfortunately we're probably going to lose you now, aren't we, Rich? As you've got.
Yeah, no. I just want to before I go. I want to say nice to meet you, Marcus. I've had a great podcast. I think it's been really good, really interesting. And this could probably go on like 2 or 3 hours, but I'm sure that there's like a time limit you guys are working to. But thanks for inviting me, Bathtime and Omondi. Really appreciate it, guys. And I've got to head off because I've organised sort of other things to do tonight, where we've got to talk about how we're going to beat Wolves and other things Manchester United related. But thanks a lot, guys, and hopefully see you all soon.
Big up, Rich. Thank you.
Yeah, big up yourself, Rich.
Cheers.
Okay, right. So what I wanted to talk about, Marcos, is you've also coached or are currently a coach. I'm slightly unclear on that. Are you scouting and coaching at the moment?
Yeah, I'm a coach and a scout. So you can do those things simultaneously. They work really well together, actually, as well.
What age groups are you working with and looking at?
So I'm the head coach of a men's team. But I've coached literally right through the whole spectrum. So I started out as obviously a youth coach, and it was probably about 15 or 16. So I'm playing football, and it just seemed like a sensible thing to do at the time. And so I did summer camp coaching, worked with some good players through that. And yeah, I've just always kept my feet involved. When I went to America, for example, I was playing, but I do one-to-one coaching with professors' kids and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think I always had an affinity with kids, and because I always liked to do skills and whatever, I was always practicing skills. So I was quite creative with how I trained myself. So I just use those ideas to do my one-to-ones and whatever. But yeah, I think I probably wasn't the most gifted player, so I had to have an understanding and a game intelligence. So my interest in that kind of started early, and I've always, like Omondi was saying, I've always been a really physically competitive person. Like when I'm in sports mode, I'm in beast mode, mate. Honestly, I love it. So there was no issues from that perspective, and because I'm that competitive, if I'm a team member in your team, we could all be in the same team, and you'd know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm gonna want us to win every game, every moment, and I'll do whatever it is, Omondi, to get the best out of you, to get the best out of myself. And if my teammates as well want to do that with me, I'm not one of those dudes that's going to complain. It drives me. You know, if my teammate encourages me, I'm never going to throw my arms about or whatever. I want to do it, and I set a good example. So I think I had a lot of transferable skills that just sort of worked really well, which kind of feed into who I am and my identity as a coach. And it's kind of just driven me on. Like one thing, just turning up and being there and taking it all in and learning. That's the best advice I can give to any coach. Just being around football, taking in people, what people you respect are saying, and asking them questions is more valuable than any kind of qualification you can ever get. But your qualifications, what that does is it gives you a chance to exercise that and find your own identity, because that's what they do in these coaching courses that the FA puts on. So you decide your philosophy, your identity, and then you feed in all this information that you've learned over the years. You really got to be flexible. And well, I'll just say one thing. I was watching a recording of like this seminar the other day, and it was filmed quite a few years ago, but it had a panel. They were talking about a lot of youth coaching aspects, but they had this lady on the panel, and she was the head of youth development at Atletico Bilbao. This woman, and she said one thing that really sort of stuck with me, and she said, because they were asking her lots of questions about, because Bilbao only recruit Basque players, local players, and they develop them, so they've got a massive focus on their coaches, and they've got to be the right people, because that's what makes it work. And they were saying one of the things that they ask their coaches to do is, so it's not about the results. We hear all that sort of stuff, youth coaching, not about the results, about developing players, but developing themselves. So before they even feed back to their players, they've got to feed back to themselves, assess themselves. What could I have done better? And I just think that's probably one of the best bits of advice that I could give any coach or anybody who's looking to go into coaching. If you go in with that mentality all the time, it's a bit like a crap sandwich, the crap in the middle, you're going to be feeding back to somebody to try and get them to improve, but you've also got to have the humility to focus on yourself first, then back on them, be able to have a conversation, and then it's a collaboration. How can we both create the environment where it's going to be you develop as an individual and as a team?
This is all music to my ears.
I was going to say that.
Literally everything you've said is like foundations and fundamentals of both like my life and sort of playing football, like your teams, working hard, working on yourself, like all these things. I'm absolutely delighted, Marcos, that someone with my values and a lot more like physicality is out there. It's honestly
amazing, Bathtime, that like Marcus is talking, and I could close my eyes. It could be you. Saying all the things that you preach about, and the fitness as well, the self-determination to go out there, do extra mile. Bathtime, he actually does running. Tell them about your routines, like running in the morning, Bathtime. Just for
I run like I basically copy a lot of stuff that I've read that footballers have done. So until I was about 23, I used to copy. I've never seen Stanley Matthews play, but I know he didn't eat on Mondays, so I didn't eat on Mondays. And I remember there was a quote from Joey Barton, we've talked about this before, like during a World Cup or something. He was criticising Lampard and Gerrard, saying like, appalling performances from the lads. I was up running like at 6 every day. What were they doing that? And Lampard came back and said, I've been doing that since I was 14. And so I started doing that, and I run like about 6 kilometers 5 times a week. I take physical, like you've got to prepare if your body's in bad shape, like you're not going to be able to play well. I believe routine is the foundation of like any success. And I'm like, it is crazy hearing you say what I've been saying for 2 years on this channel. And so hopefully someone might listen to me now. But that's incredible, Marcus. Okay, so we're running out of a bit of time, and I think that everyone in the comments and both myself and Omondi would love to have you back on to get more into the sort of the scouting and the coaching part. So I think our last topic. I'm trying to think of the most interesting one for people watching. I think it would probably be this: is that you've talked about one-to-one coaching, like which. I never really got, because when you're coaching, are you coaching the team or are you coaching an individual, and when does that stop? So at 11 you're coaching a player, like, but at 20 you're coaching a team. So what do you sort of feel about that and things?
So when you're a coach of a team, you flip between that all the time. So for example, you might base a session solely focused around something that you want to improve in one player, that the team, everybody's going to benefit from sometimes. So for example, it might be a player that's playing in a wide position. He's really, really good at getting wide, but he never crosses the ball in because either he's not confident to cross it, or so he's making other decisions, or something like that. Maybe his technique's not the best or something, whatever. So
sounds like Anthony.
We might have a session that's based around that, but it's not really just for the individual, because there's other aspects of that. So there's defending crosses. So you look at the topic now, defending crosses, what's important for defenders. So the fullback, and that 1v1 situation, then you've got the centre back. So you can literally bring in different aspects of that one little scenario and get a lot out of it.
You can put your midfield. You can have your pivot like covering near post, one making a back three, and so essentially that. I think what you're doing is you're mid-maxing, aren't you? You're taking like a weakness from a player, but also you're giving sort of huge tactical knowledge and positional sense to your sort of like your defenders, and also you can do that with not a full team.
So that kind of stuff will dictate the numbers you have to work with, will dictate what you can achieve. So if you've got a full team in front of you, you can only do so much because you've got the attacking aspect, the defensive aspect, but you might be missing a few. So that's where you bring in other players. So the more the better, really, for a team scenario. But you've got to work with what you're given as well at times as a coach.
And does the amount of time that you have with the lads affect things? Like if you've got an hour a week with them, like you might as well just make them play football, I would think. Like
so we what we're doing, we're a grassroots club, but we've done it like we're already semi-pro, and I think it's important that you kind of wear the outfit for the job that you want, not the job that you've got. So we train an hour and a half. In the off season, we train twice a week, and then we play maybe one game a week. That'll probably move up to, at some point during pre-season, 2 games and 1 session, a recovery session towards the end. But we're in a good position at my club, really. So whatever we really want to work on, we can do it, because we've got a first team, we've got a reserves, we've got under 18s. And we're all involved with each other, so we can move players quite easily. And they know that the first team takes priority. So I'm honestly blessed with where I am at the moment, at the club I'm at.
It sounds like you fully deserve it, though, with that work ethic, which I'm a huge fan of. But in terms of sort of planning your sessions, actually, I'm probably going a bit too fast. How far out are sessions planned? Like, do you know what you're doing?
Everybody does it differently. But me personally, like, I'll be honest with you now, it's got to the point where I've got so many different sessions in my arsenal that I can just grab, different things out. Wow. But what we'll do, we'll probably have a conversation after the game on the weekend. Say we're training Tuesday night, I'll plan it. I'll probably take the Sunday off, plan it on the Monday. I wouldn't plan it on the same day because I like to have a little time to reflect on it at least. And I like to put it down on paper also, because I think it's just handy to have a visual, and you'll always know that it's good to have last minute in your pocket. If you forget anything, you can have something to refer to. So I know it might seem pedantic for some other coaches, but I'll jot it down. Even sometimes if I scribble it down, very rough, with just limited information, it'd be have little prompts on there for me to help set up. But yeah, I think one thing you've got to do is be flexible as well. So you've got to understand that your session, it might not actually have the outcome that you want, but to have a outcome.
You just took the words out of my mouth. I was about to ask you that about outcome. So you've got an outcome with your session. You know what you want to achieve, but is it important that the players understand what they're doing and why they're doing the session?
It's very important. Yeah, because then it can feed into everything that you're doing. So we've done it the old school way, where we've got a written up philosophy, which is a PDF which all the players can look at.
Yeah.
That weren't dictated by me. I think sometimes that's hard as a coach. You've got to try and take somebody else's philosophy and then coach that out. But I like the challenge. So there are aspects of it which I don't fully, I'm not fully on board with, but at the same time, that's a challenge for me as a coach. So you just change your, got to understand that maybe I've had a grassroots environment before where I dictate everything. It's not like that anymore. Now I'm working in a team with some other people. Yeah. So we've got a goalkeeping coach. We've got other coaches involved who have their strengths as well. So even if I am the head coach, I've got to, factor that in. But yeah, so I think that just to give you an idea of how I plan a session, everything will be dictated by my topic. So even the warm up. So you got some. So I think it's important to mix it up and do different things and not do the same thing every week. So like if your warm up is just doing cones and they go through the dynamics, then that's fine. But why don't you go online and find some really advanced, high level dynamic movements they can do, and then bring that in every once in a while. So always advancing yourself as a coach. Or what I like to do is I like to do focus warm up on a part of the body which we're going to use in the session more often than not. So that could be like striking a ball. If I know we're doing a session on shooting or crossing, anything we're going to strike the ball, I transition from the dynamic and static stretching and warm up to working with the ball, doing the same movements, and then that might feed into a snapshot of the session. So, and then what I mean by that is the topic of my session, I'll always have an area of focus, which is broken down. So it might be that 1v1 scenario in a wide area to a cross. So I might have a drill that's set up focusing on that, and then you expand it into a game situation. And then at the end, have a game, try and relate it in again to what you've worked on in the topic. It's not always possible to do all of that together. If you do, great, ideal. But if you can only find a little transition at the beginning of the session and you don't get onto the bits that you want to do, then that's so be it. That's what you got to work. That's what you got to do. But I think the most important thing is the understanding, and seeing the actual results in front of you in the development. It might be a little bit boring for players at time if that's what you're doing, but if it's really critical and really important, they'll understand it. So yeah.
Wow.
Well, I think that brings us to the end of the show, Omondi.
Oh, no.
I know. All right, go on. Ask another one. One.
Yeah, maybe we save it for next time, Marcus, because there's so much you're talking. I'm just like, wow. So, like, what happens when you get an ex-pro player maybe comes down to your level? Does he respect you? Does he check? Because I know this with footballers. It's like, what have you done? What's your CV? And does he respect you when you're doing the training? Because sometimes you get a bit bickering, a bit of undermining, saying, what's he doing here? And then my second part of the question,
I think in football, in football, it's one of those things like, if somebody's a chef, they make food, it doesn't mean you can't criticize their food. They might be trained to make food, but you might not like it. So it's got to be a two-way street. It's always got to be like that. But at the same time, the environment that you're working in, the football environment, the first time I was in a semi-pro team and I went from being a player to being a coach, and I had two players, they weren't listening to what I was saying. Obviously, I had to call them out, and there's a respect barrier that you've got to basically, keep up. But I'm not fussed. Let's have a conversation about it. If they've got knowledge, I want the knowledge. Let's have a conversation. Yeah. So what they're saying might be right. It doesn't mean that because I'm the coach, I'm right. I might be doing something that, what they got to offer can add value to it. So it's
But
always...
sorry, Marcus, you said earlier that the coach in America, when you questioned him about zonal marking, he couldn't take it. He didn't want to have that conversation. You're not doing the same as him. You're saying, well, we can have a conversation about it if that's the case. So it's
Yeah, I've never really thought that, to be honest. But again, it comes down to the individual. Like me and him clashed, and if I was in his shoes, maybe I would have given myself a chance and listened to it. But that was his way, and that's not my way. Yeah. So,
because you learnt from it, innit? Like it's part of the sort of thing about coaching is you're also coaching yourself.
Yeah, but I think I think more so with my upbringing, the way my parents brought me up. Like to at least like consider what other people have got to offer. So it's more so like about that, and I'm pretty sure all of those coaches at the top level, they're not in that change room disrespecting any of their players, and even like, players like N'Golo Kante, he probably isn't that vocal in a change room, but everybody's got respect for him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, it starts with respect, really.
Wow. You know what? I'm taking so much from this, from my own personal football trials and tribulations I'm going through now. So we're going to have to talk again, Marcus, no doubt. 100%. I really enjoyed this session. It's like a training session for me.
Sort of like it's motivational speaker. That was absolutely fantastic, bruv. Like, it's great. It's great to hear good guys with the right values succeeding in life, passing it on, and sort of letting our viewers what really sort of goes into sort of living football, like not just playing FIFA and like chirping on Twitter and stuff. Like doing the hard yards, going and looking on the internet for your coaching sessions, listening to bloody Atletico Bilbao's youth director talking about like essentially how you coach racial discrimination. And things like that. It's incredible. So where can people find you if you want to be found?
So I'm not massive on social media, but so my name's Marcos Batherlor. I do have a business which I've registered called XP Sports, and there's some stuff that's coming up in the future which I'd love to plug in on here if possible and tell you more about.
Of course.
But yeah, for now, just any social media, Twitter. I don't even know what my handle is. That's how bad it is.
Brilliant.
But yeah, Facebook.
Right, tell us about XP Media then.
So it's XP Sports Management,
My apologies.
and it's a company which it's a business I'm hoping to start, a company I've registered, but it was inspired by all of my experiences in America with sports, and essentially. What America really does well is they've got platforms to get young athletes out in front of people, known. They're all really well media trained. Everybody knows who their local top athletes are in America. And it's something which I thought we could really benefit from over here. So I'm just trying to do lots of different things at kind of grassroots level, which is going to hopefully give a platform to young players who might not have an opportunity elsewhere. So not everybody has family life that's stable enough to go to a football academy, but why not give them a platform to go play with their school and play in this event, and still reap the other benefits from it. So
that's brilliant.
In their lives.
That's absolutely fantastic. Yeah. You have to come on and talk to us about that in greater depth at some stage. But we've come to the end of the show, and we always end the show with one question. Omondi, have you seen The Lord of the Rings yet?
Marcus, I made a deal with Bathtime that I would watch Lord of the Rings. He watched the movie for me that I wanted to watch, The Wanderers, and he enjoyed it. He watched it the same weekend. It's been nearly 6 months, so I've got about another 6 months to go before I watch Lord of the Rings. You know what it's like? You sit down in the evenings and you say, all right, I'm going to watch it, and I can never get round to it. So by the next time you come on, Marcus, make sure, I won't let Darius ask you. You ask me whether I've watched it or not.
All right, I'll ask you.
All right. Well, Marcos, thank you so much for joining. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that everyone enjoyed that. Leave comments, blah blah blah, and I've got to do the end screen. This is the end screen.
Why not?